possible to spend too long in the bathtub? Yeah, maybe. Maybe if you're a king and you spend your whole day and night in the bathtub and your hands start to get all wrinkly and pruny, that's probably not a great idea. All right, so for our project today, we're going to do a little investigation that you can do with a tub of water or even in your own tub if you want. So if you're going to do this out of the bath, you're going to need a towel just to keep your space clean because you're probably going to splash a little bit. And then a small, shallow bucket of water, filled up with water. A couple inches deep is probably good. You're going to want to have a piece of scrap paper, something to write with, and different small objects from around your home. And it can be anything you want as long as it's okay for them to get wet. So you don't want to use anything that can't get wet. So I've got myself a straw and a marble. And this letter, what letter is this? That's right, it's the letter B for bathtub. All right, so on our piece of paper, I'm just going to put this over here for now. Either if your little one is ready to write on their own or they're still learning, you can write it for them. We're going to draw 3 lines, one across the top, and then another 2 coming down, so that you have 3 columns. And we're going to leave the top of the first column blank, but in the other 2 we're going to write the word sink and the word float. What is sinking and floating? So sinking is when you put an object in the water and it sinks down, it goes down to the bottom. So if you throw a rock into the river, it doesn't stay up on top of the water, it sinks down to the bottom of the river, and that's why there's lots of rocks at the bottom of the river, because they all sank. Or, what about if you throw a leaf in the river? Now a leaf is probably going to stay up on top of the river where we can see it. That means the leaf is floating. What about you? Can you sink or float? We can do both. If we try to sink, if we make ourselves nice and small and tight, we'll probably sink to the bottom of the water. But we can keep ourselves above the water by swimming, right? When we swim, we float. All right, so what we're going to do is an investigation to see what things from around our house will sink in the water and what things around the house will float in the water. And we'll write down what we find on our piece of paper, because we're scientists and we want to make sure we write down what we find out so that we can tell other people. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to test is this letter B. What do you think? Is this letter B going to sink or is it going to float? Now, if you're doing this at home and you're trying to decide, give your child the opportunity to pick up the object, feel it with their hands, maybe throw it in the air a couple of times before you make your guess, because that might help you figure it out. I think that this is probably going to float. It feels pretty light. This is made of plastic. We printed it on the 3D printer, so I think it's going to float, but I'm not sure. So before I do this, I'm going to draw my letter B on my piece of paper on the left side, and I don't have the pink crayon, so I'm just going to use a purple crayon instead. So there's my letter B, and that way I know the stuff in that row is going to tell me about this letter B. Should we do it? Should we find out if it sinks or it floats? All right, I'm going to drop it in here. It looks like it floats. It's staying up on top of the water, so I'm going to draw a big X in the float category for my letter B. There's my big X. All right, let's try something else. Let's try, what's this? This is a straw. So I'm going to draw my straw on my paper, and it's green, so I'm going to use my green crayon. Got a little bend in it. All right, color it in, I guess. So there's my green straw. Now, what do you think? Is this straw going to sink or is it going to float? I'm going to take a look at it here. Feels pretty light and it's got a lot of air inside it. Now, I think that having air inside helps things float. What do you think? Let's see, let me throw this in the water. It's floating, but I wonder if I push it under the water and the whole straw fills up with water, if it'll still float. What do you think? It's still floating, even when it got filled up with water. So if you were going to build a boat, straws might not be a bad choice. All right, so I'm going to make another X in the float column for my straw. All right, now let's find out about this black marble. Do we think this marble is going to sink or float? All right, you have your guess? I'm going to draw my marble on a piece of paper. I'll just draw a little circle and color it in. That'll be my marble. There's my marble. And then we're going to drop the marble in the water. What do you think? Last chance to guess. All right, here we go. Oh, it sank. The marble sank. So I'm going to put an X in the column for sink. So how many things did I have that floated? 1, 2. And how many things did I have that sank? Just 1. Now you can do this on your own and you can test as many objects as you want and write them down. And if you are excited and want to share your results with us on Facebook, you are more than welcome to do so. And this is something that you can do in the bathtub too. Next time you're in the bath, see if you can drop a couple things in there, see if they float or sink. Have fun. Remember to take your bath every day so you stay clean. And we'll see you next week for Virtual Storytime. Thanks for tuning in.